Well, I guess we could talk anyway, couldn't we?
Yeah, yeah.
Has anyone done one of these Zoom meetings before with Richard?
Richard,
No.
Yes.
No.
A while back.
No.
I've been to them actually at Darlington, but not one of these. I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea. I'm talking to you from Australia.
Oh, are you?
Wow. Hello.
Hello.
What time is it there?
10 p.m. Bedtime.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, bedtime.
Wow.
Oh, good for you.
I just hope I'm going to be able to share my photos. Hello.
hello.
Mad last minute panic.
Are you one of the featured artists, Caroline?
Yeah, I am. I'm just worried I won't be able to share my photos because we've just had a dummy run and it didn't work. So, yeah, it's
Oh, well.
the trouble with technology, isn't it? It's I
So
don't.
how do you do that then?
Well, as far as I understand, Richard has to share the content or enable me to share my content. But when I can share it, there will just be a delay because I try to compose like a slideshow and it doesn't seem to want to do that. So I'm going to have to just put in, like download each photograph, which there will be a delay, but I'll just pick about 8 to 10 photos and go for it, really, just have a chat. Doesn't have to be this super duper whizzy thing, does it?
No, I think all of us are practicing here.
Yeah, it is. And the trouble is I've got family and we're all using online things and iPads and phones, and yeah, it's not a great setup. So
is whizzy a technical term, Caroline?
oh, I think whizzy could be a technical term, Richard.
Good, let's make it one. Let's make it one. Yeah, are you trying to? Are you on your phone or are you on the computer?
No, I'm actually on the iPad now.
So it ought to be fairly straightforward to share your screen, but you know, sometimes.
Shall I give it a go?
Give it a go. Well, once you have a little practice, give it a go and see if it works.
Okay, all right. Share content. It says only the host can share in the meeting, so you have to disable your sharing.
Okay.
Thing.
Because usually I do. So let me change that.
We're just testing it now. Don't worry, it's fine. My other half, so done it.
Okay, try again, Caroline. You should be able to do it now.
Like share content, photos. If I go to my photos, I should be able to share some. It's just not doing it as a slideshow, which is what I would have liked. So then I go to albums. So look, Zoom meeting. There we go. So if I press on, oh, lost it.
Hi everybody, Caroline's just having a little practice at trying screen sharing, but while she does that, I'll just say hello. I'll say hello a bit more properly in a minute. Thank you for those of you who are muted. There may be times when I will mute or unmute everybody, because we've got some noise in the background from someone. That's just to make it kind of easier to hear if you haven't done one of these before. So who's drumming? Because I can hear. That's Anik? Is that you, Anik? No, it wasn't because you're muted. Okay. It was. Hello. Have you had any success?
Shall I come to you and see where we're at? Yeah. Yeah. But they're not I did try, and it downloaded some, and then it stopped. It could just be where I live in a very rural.
It's possible. I mean, when you
Yeah.
share, when you click on share screen, it should just do that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's possible if you've got a slow connection.
Yeah. So basically, I've clicked on 4. Okay, they're downloading. Well, some are and some aren't. So I'll just try as many as possible. Okay. Even if I just share a few, it's better than nothing.
Yes,
isn't it?
okay. So, right.
Getting there. I've done 5, 6, 7. It's jumping through them.
Okay. Well, while that is going on, I'm just going to bear with me for a second.
Fine.
I'm just going to get us going. So, welcome everybody to the August First Friday. Now, we don't usually do one of these in August, but we're doing one, so that's fine because everybody seemed to want to do one. It would be, as we're quite a small group, it would be really nice just to go very quickly around the group and just tell us who you are and where you're from, but limit it to that so that we don't have we don't spend all the time doing this. We've also found in the past that 90 minutes is just about people's limit in terms of dealing with. Oh, Caroline, now we can see you, Caroline. That's good.
Good. Okay.
So that's
Brilliant.
good. So we can see some images. So we'll see how we do on time. But we have with us, and correct me if I'm wrong, if there's anybody who's expecting to share today. So we've got Caroline, who's going to go on first. Lars is also going to, Lars Schmidt, and you're joining us from Bonn today, is that right?
No, I'm in Switzerland at the moment.
You're in Switzerland, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we'll do our round robin in a minute. Emma is joining us from Exeter, is that right, Emma? Hello, is Emma there? She was there a minute ago. And Gwendolyn or Gwen, which do you prefer? She's not here either. Okay, well, let's see how we get on. Is there anybody else who was expecting to share today?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear, yes. Caroline, can you unshare your screen for a minute?
Unshare it. If I just press stop share, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, I might have to reboot them, but we'll see.
I'll tell you what, don't unshare your screen.
Okay.
I will introduce you and then you can kick off
I'll
first.
go for it. Yeah, okay.
So the people are still joining us.
I'm trying to join. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes, Martin, is that you?
Yeah, I just can't see multiple screen.
At the moment, all you can see is Caroline because she's sharing.
Sorry, that's me. Yeah, that's my fault.
So don't worry about it. It will eventually return to normal.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll stop the share in about 5 minutes. I'll just have a quick.
Is that lunch?
That's lunch. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my packed lunch. Yeah.
Well, if you're at First Friday, you have to share your lunch, so it's not much for all of us. Because on Zoom, there's no such concept as a circle, because everybody's seeing something different. I'm just going to call out people's names and just ask you just to introduce yourself very quickly and tell us where you're coming from today, and you can give me one more sentence. So I'm going to start with, I'm just going to go down the list here. So Lars, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah. So my name is Lars Schmidt. Hello, everybody. I was originally in Glasgow for the time until lockdown, and then I moved a little bit south. I was in England on the farm, and at the moment I'm in Switzerland in Basel. And yeah, so that's at the moment from where I joined you guys.
Great, thank you very much. Francis, I have a Francis here. I don't have everyone's full name.
Have you got my video or not?
Sorry?
Have you got my video or not?
Not, I don't. I can't tell you at the moment because.
Oh, okay. Well, my name.
Sorry, my fault. Just blame me.
I think I'm not sure I do, Francis. But anyway, we will sort that out in a minute. But
Okay.
would you like to just introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Frances, and I'm from the Wirral, and I'm a printmaker, and I've been very interested in what you've been doing for years. It's just I live such a long way away, so I'm delighted to come today. Join
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, we don't have you visible, but maybe you can turn your video on. Can you? Anyway, it doesn't matter for now. Ellie.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, sorry I was a bit late. Nice to see everybody. I'm in Cyprus and it's extremely hot today, so I'm in a different place with air conditioning on this afternoon.
Nice. Lovely.
And I have a mystery person called iPhone. I'm not quite sure who that is. Who's on an iPhone?
Me. Melissa is.
Okay.
Is that me?
Yes,
Yeah?
probably you, yeah.
Okay, can you see it or not? I don't know.
I can see you, yeah.
Okay, yes, I'm on an iPhone. Yeah, it's Melissa Wishart. I live near Bath in Bradford-on-Avon, and it's very hot here today as well. And I suppose I'm a painter and filmmaker, really.
Okay, thank you very much. Emma.
Hiya. Hello, Emma Welton here. I'm in Exeter in southwest England, and I'm
Oh, we've lost you for a minute. Are you still there?
Did you get that? Well, I finished.
Okay, great, perfect. Thank you for being concise. Martin.
Oh, hi, I'm Martin. I'm in Totnes, also in southwest England. I was a printmaker, but I've made ceramics recently. And it's my birthday today.
Hey.
Oh, happy birthday.
Well done.
Oh.
Birthday.
We're obviously not a singing crowd, but you never know what might happen by the end of the day. Happy birthday, Martin.
Thank you very
Happy
much.
birthday.
Stan Giles. Stan Giles, is that right?
Hello, everyone.
Right, there he is.
Yes. I live in Stroud and I'm a painter.
Is that the first time you've been with us, Stan?
Yes, I've been meaning to come down for a little while and circumstances haven't really meant that I've been able to. So this is a really good introduction to the group.
Right. Good, excellent. Anik.
Hello, Anik. I'm actually from Brunswick Heads, New South Wales, Australia. I had a fantastic time at Dartington Hall with Liquidscapes in 2018. That's where I joined you all first. And this is my first Zoom gathering on a Friday. And it's also my daughter's birthday. So it's a big day.
Oh.
Well, I'll tell you a secret. It's my birthday. It's my birthday in 2 days as well. So clearly we're a bunch of Leos around here.
All these Leos. It was my husband 2 days ago.
Oh my gosh.
A bunch of Leos.
Yeah, exactly. Bunch of lions we've got here. Daniel.
Oh. Hello, everybody, for the first time. I'm coming from the fine art, living in Bonn, and I work since years with artistic interventions.
Thank you, that's great. Welcome. The list keeps changing order, so I'm trying to track who I've introduced and have. Jane. That's Jane Hodgson. Jane, are you there and are you mute? Yeah.
I am. I've just unmuted myself.
Okay.
Yeah, Jane Hodgson. I'm in, close to Bovey Tracy, England, southwest. Just briefly, I did the Arts and Ecology MA just before Richard took over, and then got to know Richard and Nancy because of my involvement in that. And yeah, more to say, but that's it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Jane Porter.
Hello. I'm in Dartington, and I just turned on my iPhone and on my iPad and found that Emma Welton was going to be in here, so I thought I would tune in.
Great.
Hello,
Welcome.
Emma.
Excellent.
And happy birthday, Martin.
Richard,
yes.
Could I interrupt a minute? Christiana's just texted me. Could you ask Richard to let me in again?
Oh, sorry. Yes. She's back in now.
She must have jumped out.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Julie, I think, is next.
Hi there. I'm in my sweltering studio in East London. I've got a little fan, but it's pretty grim in here. I do paintings. I've made sculpture, done loads of drawings, switching back and forth, mostly painting at the moment. And I can't stay for the whole thing, but I'll be here for a while.
That's okay.
Hello, everyone. And all those birthdays, happy birthday.
Katie.
Hi, everyone. I'm based in Oxford, UK. Sculptural sort of installation, but with a textiles background.
Okay. Oh, my phone's ringing. I can't do anything about it. Melissa. Melissa, are you there? I know you're muted.
Oh, sorry, you've done me because I just renamed myself from iPhone.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry. Good. Well, that's helpful anyway. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Peony.
Hello, I'm Peony from Norwich, and my art tends to be concerned with ocean sustainability.
Okay, very good. I think that's everybody. Have I missed anyone? No. Okay, so
I haven't said anything, Richard.
Oh, hello.
Lizzie.
Oh, hello. Sorry. Yes, introduce yourself.
Don't want to miss out here. And I don't think Christiana's introduced herself either.
No, she hasn't actually, because she was out of the room at the time.
Absolutely disgusting behaviour. So I'm Lizzie Stevens, and I'm in Truro, Cornwall, southwest UK, and I've recently been bereaved. So talking about birthdays, mine's the other way around. The old impermanence is very clear and well in this establishment, but I'm doing okay. Very recent, so a bit raw.
Yeah.
But I'm working towards Open Studios Cornwall, which is at the end of August, and my current medium is lemon peel. But citrus is my thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one person who's just joined us, and then we'll stop this nonsense because it could go on all day. Yeah, who was it? Who just came in? I can't remember.
I haven't said anything.
Go on then, say something.
I'm Kaz. I live in North Devon. I work with deep ecology, and I'm an artist, stroke installation artist, hoping to move to Exeter next year.
Great, thank you, Kaz. That's great. And Christiana.
Yeah, hi, I'm in Cornwall in Penzance, and I have an exhibition actually at art.earth in lockdown for I don't know how long. I'm really looking forward to see what it looks like after the summer. I've been working with sustainable materials in textiles and botanical dyeing.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I think that's everyone. Is that everyone? Great. Okay, so anybody who comes in now, it's too late. You can use the chat to exchange messages and emails, but bear in mind if you choose to share your email, everybody will see it, and it will also be published. So only share your email if you're happy to share your email. Otherwise, it's a great place just to kind of share, answer questions or share thoughts or as we go along. And I save the chat and it goes up later on the website. And similarly, we save the video. So if there's anything you say that you later regret, you can let me know and I will try to remove it. So I'm going to introduce Caroline Hyde-Brown. Everybody's going to, the artists who are sharing, going to speak for sort of 5 to 10 minutes max, and then we'll open up the floor for questions. It's always a little bit more formal than I'd like, just because of the nature of Zoom, I'm afraid. So I may have to call on you rather than having a free-flowing conversation. But Caroline, over to you.
Oh, thanks, Richard. And thank you to everybody for joining us today, because it really is a hot one. And yeah, it's the temperature's rising in Norfolk, where I'm based, and it's pretty scorching. So I'd just like to say a big thank you. Just to say, I'm not very good as well at answering questions and talking. The kind of sequencing part of my brain doesn't compute. Yeah, so forgive me if I don't reply to the chat whilst I'm talking. I think I am very informal, and I want this to be just a sort of basic introduction and chat about my practice. So if you feel that you want to just ask me a question, please go for it. I'm quite happy for somebody to butt in and just sort of and ask. So just to say, where I live is really rural, so I'll just quickly go straight into oh, thanks, Richard. I did actually read that. Yeah, it's really hard, isn't it, to chat and present. But so I live in a really rural area, and my practice at the moment is focusing primarily on biomaterial with the harvested residue of crops. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I'm just going to say that basically I look at the countryside as my playground for my resources. A lot of these slides are going to be based around using the harvested residue of crops, such as rapeseed, wild grasses, kitchen waste, tea bags. That's why you've got that picture there. This slide is actually a picture of a seed, a grass pea seed, which is an ancient Neolithic crop, and the one I'm particularly looking at. And I wanted to just sort of see whether it would grow in this horrendous sort of plastic container left over from something, whether it was chips or something, I don't know, but in with some waste, and it did grow. So it kind of proved my theory correct about resilience, because I do want to touch on resilience today within my practice. So I study trees, I look at bark, I look at raindrops, stones, the earth, fallen leaves, petals, dried flowers, and then I try and incorporate them into design ideas or pattern. The relationship that I have with my materials is the most important thing to me, and I really try and rediscover a sort of sense of belonging, and hope to believe that on a deeper level it makes us all more inclined to share and cooperate, which I really believe it does. During lockdown, I've had to restructure my practice, and this word resilience keeps kind of popping up in my head. So I looked it up, and it's actually a Latin word from the mid-17th century, meaning to spring back or rebound or recoil. Which I thought was quite interesting at a time like this, when we're all so aware of social distancing and having to stand back. So I'd like to sort of just you to keep that word in your head whilst I flick through my slides. is also having an ability to recover after a significant change, which I think is really reflective of what we're going through. And also returning to nature, I try and look to this sort of self-renewal and self-repair by constantly testing my materials. So for this one, it's actually a loo roll bowl made out of papers and waste papers, and I've got dried hollyhocks in the bottom of the bowl. Scale-wise, it's about as big as a sort of cereal dish. Does that make sense, Richard? Is that
it
better?
does, thank you. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, so it's not a. I've taken the photograph from the top of the bowl. So I've just constructed it, and I'm making paper over my kitchen sink at the moment. It's not ideal, but there's all sorts of things that go into a piece like this. So I'm looking at bioadhesives as well and how things bond together. So I'm thinking about how we're all sticking together in these circumstances, how we're sort of thinking about this testing notion as well. I'm trying to put my materials under quite a lot of stress, for example, by distressing them, by dyeing them, ripping them, tearing them. But I do normally choose humble materials such as cheesecloth, muslin or linen. And I also stitch with what's known as a twin wing-tip needle to put my fragile surfaces under even more duress. So I'm constantly kind of searching for how it's going to react, how it's going to be manipulated. And sometimes I don't even know what I'm searching for because I really don't know how it's all going to turn out. So I work really intuitively. But I also think when you're searching for your materials, there's a real vulnerability in admitting that these imperfections or gaps in our knowledge that don't quite happen at the beginning, and that vulnerability brings us closer. So that's something that I quite like thinking about and reflecting upon. And I also think that embroidery is a perfect medium for sort of denoting this fragility or idea of holding something together. So for this slide, I was thinking about the rhizome principle, which is a book written by a French philosopher, Deleuze, who looks at where there's no beginning and no end. So I'd boiled my crop and used the residue and just bundled a whole load of threads in for the dyeing process. I do work in a circular sort of format as well, quite a lot, because I quite like the nest, which reflects the sort of nurturing of natural processes and creativity. Since lockdown, I've been spending a lot of time at home, so I feel this sort of obligation to nurture or support my family, which is quite important, and it's something I think about. But I also think about how each creative process is completely unique, which allows myself to sort of grow and look at employing really simple methods. So I'm just looking at using my immediate surroundings, my garden, and picking up materials whilst I'm on my walks, for instance. I am also really interested in I don't know whether anybody's heard of the whole systems approach, which is a methodology that I came across, adopted by a group of product design students in Iceland at Reykjavik University. And they were using willow, and they just added heat and water. So for a lot of my materials, I am simply just using harvested rainwater and just putting it out into the sun to dry. And just sort of looking at the whole drying process and how that brings more time and a different kind of element to the process and my practice. These are some samples. The top right hand side is lichen. And then I started becoming a bit obsessed with spirals in nature, and the grass pea that I'm looking at currently has got a beautiful spiral that attaches itself. The grass pea is very much like the ordinary sweet pea that we have in our gardens growing. So so that was the thinking behind the spiral embroidery. The one that's sort of to the left of the two on the far right are the grass pea seed pods, and they're really beautiful. They sort of curl upwards and curl around, and they're enclosed in 2 layers of tulle. And then I've just used the twin needle again to sort of whiz around in a circular format to enclose them, because when I go to John Ennis, a lot of the glass houses have all their crops in a controlled environment, because their particular area of research is on toxicity levels for this grass pea, because it can be quite toxic if it's eaten in large quantities. So they're looking at reducing this toxicity level so that this crop can become more widely available for consumption and not just used as a byproduct for fodder material. Here we have some bowls. The top one is made from tea bags and gold leaf. So I was looking at the contrast between a waste material and something that we value, i.e. gold. And then on the seeds, they're a type of legume. They're a grass pea seed, because there's lots and lots of different varieties of grass pea. The embroidery is done with sari waste, and that's done in a soluble machine embroidery format, where you just do you use the base fabric as a soluble base, and then you immerse it in boiling water, and it leaves just the thread.
Great, Caroline, can you whiz through the images now?
Yes. Am I done? I think that's it, actually. Yep. Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm done. That was my last one. I wasn't sure
perfect.
how many had downloaded, so
That's
yeah,
great.
I can stop. Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Does anybody have a question or a comment for Caroline? Just raise your hand and then I can bring you in. Yeah, Peony.
Hi, Caroline. I know Caroline because we both do the MA in Norwich at Newer. And I just wanted to say, what I particularly liked was the thinking of the bonding together of both materials and people. I just thought that was that just really grabbed me. That was all.
I am quite emotional, and I think my relationship with my materials is a really important one. So and I do, before lockdown, I do sort of work a lot with people, so maybe that's coming through in my work, that I'm missing that kind of people contact. But collaboration and mentoring and teaching is a really integral part of my practice, and certainly what drives my making, as well as my relationship with my materials. So yeah, it's all about that for me.
Daniel.
Yes, hello, and thank you for the presentation. I asked myself, in which part of the society, in which context would you present your present your work? So do you have any idea where it
currently
could work?
Yeah, currently I'm the context is within, I suppose, would be sustainability and agricultural. So I'd be looking at things like hunger and famine, because this crop, I'm looking at developing this surface specifically to raise its residual value. So the plan was to go out to an area in India called the Sundarbans in West Bengal and teach my methods to rural villages and subsistence farmers. But obviously that I wasn't able to get funding to go out before lockdown, and now lockdown has happened, and that particular area of West Bengal that I was going to I won't be able to visit. So yeah, so that's my context really, is agricultural sustainability.
Any more for Caroline? Yes, Jane.
Because the nature of the work will disintegrate in time, I assume, do you record it, video, photography, obviously, so
Yeah,
it becomes part of the work as well?
Yeah, I think it's really hard, isn't it, to explain it all in 10 minutes. So I probably missed a huge amount out. But my photography is really important. So I do take photographs at the beginning of my processes if I need to, if I don't have that raw, if I need a memory of such. So, but most of the surfaces I recreate, they're, I mean, how would I suppose you would have them as, you could have them as art pieces. Sometimes I use them as a base to start designing from. But in terms of permanence, like whether they'd sort of disintegrate, they don't tend to disintegrate. How do you mean by full disintegrate?
I suppose I'm really talking in decades time, decades and decades.
Oh, I
because
don't
of the
know.
nature of, no, quite. I was just interested, you know,
Yeah.
do we, I often
Yeah.
think, you know, how is photography and video, it's not just a recording for oneself, but it is the artwork too, or can be, can't it? I think.
Yeah, yes, I suppose it's not something that I tend to just create and they're there. I don't really think about whether they're going to be permanent. I do consider the end use as in how they could be thrown away in so far. Do you mean that? So their biodegradability? Because
Yes,
all the surfaces I produce are biodegradable.
Yes.
So in terms of their permanence, then I suppose you could say that they could all just return back to the earth because they're not going to be regarded as landfill. I don't know. It really depends what you have, which object is for. So sometimes when I used to design lighting, for instance, most of the lighting that I used to design and produce, that was biodegradable because that was actually a biosurface. But I've been working with biosurfaces for over 20 years. And it's only really in the last sort of 10 or 15 years that it's starting to gain momentum. And what's interesting is the Cradle to Cradle book that was written over 10 years ago. And that's a circular book. And yet we all seem to be suddenly talking about circularity. And circularity has been going on for a long, long time. It's just obviously now it's so much, it's a hot topic. But yeah, I don't advertise myself as I suppose I don't like putting myself into a box, but I am an embroiderer. That is how I see myself, and my practice is all about biomaterials. So, and I suppose I'm a bit of a material scientist as well. I just like to test and look at things and work intuitively. I don't have a perceived outcome really, unless I'm making a lampshade, which I don't do very often.
Can I take one last question from Kaz?
Hi. Yeah.
Hello. Hello, Kaz.
A terribly capitalist question, but
oh gosh.
How do you make a living?
How do I make a living? Yeah, well, that is a good question. I do quite a bit of freelance teaching. I'm glad you asked that, actually. I quite like an answer. I quite like a question like that, because there's nothing like, you've got to be honest and upfront. And I've no problem with talking about how I make a living. It's, some months are really hard, and I've learned to live very simply and very sustainably. I've been quite, I move around a lot. So we've moved a lot, me and my other half. So we've moved location within the UK, and that's helped because obviously I've been able to tap into the housing market as a revenue. But in terms of my own revenue, we just go month to month because my other half is self-employed as well. And at the moment, I've lost all my revenue for the summer. So, and he's having to reinvent the wheel because he's a very small scale manufacturer. So it's hard, but I just think that you live to your means, and that's what we do. We've always lived to our means. And
so are you saying you generate from workshops?
Yes, most of my income comes from workshops at the moment, but I do a couple of good shows a year. I exhibit at in Bury St Edmunds every year at Christmas. And before I started my MA, I was doing quite a few shows, selling direct to the general public. If you go onto my LinkedIn page, you'll be able to see my background, and you'll be able to see the sort of the work that I used to do. I used to supply the trade a lot, insofar as to say that I used to work for the High Street in the early 90s, and then but I stopped that in 2002. So I've always been a portfolio worker, really. I've done a bit of this and a bit of that.
I'm going to stop the conversation there. That's great.
Yeah.
That's a really good question to end on. Thank you, Caroline.
Pleasure.
And Lars, we'll move over to you next.
Yes. Well, I think just to sum up, I'm just finishing sort of a master's at the moment at Glasgow School of Arts, actually, while being on the move. And so I think I'll just put on a screen share because I had just compiled some stuff there. The practice in itself is, I came up, oh, hold on, I'm going to show it first. Screen share, desktop, oh, this one. Yes. I had proposed, or maybe I'll share, somehow I took the image of a Japanese tea master. I don't know if you're familiar with the Japanese tea ceremony. And so I took the image of the tea master basically because it kind of resembled most how I seem to be approaching the arts or living in that sense. And so the tea master, he has to know about planting, he has to know about tea, he has to know about architecture, poetry, painting in that sense, different. And the whole thing is really a way of life. So it's not a separate, I'm doing the artwork and then I'm doing this or I'm doing tea. And so I wanted to try to really integrate the whole thing as an understanding really of how to approach different artistic outlets or gardening or basically also, interrelating. I come from a performative and dance background also. So it's for me, it's a lot about approach. So I wrote also an essay then that basically focuses on improvisation as an ecological practice in that sense. And also here, if you have questions in between, just really bounce off. I don't think it's very helpful if I just keep talking, but I will just slip through the things. So this is painting stuff. Then this is sound. I work a lot with sound, improvised sound, electroacoustic sound, sound synthesis, but also acoustic sound, bells. It's all improvisational context. This is.
Can I ask a question, Lars?
Sure.
I'm really interested in how you bring those two practices together, and obviously there's a movement practice here too. So how do you do you feel like these practices are connected in what you do, or do they feel like you're doing separate?
No. Yes. No, they're definitely connected for me through the approach. And the approach is really, to me, an improvisational approach in the sense of there's an alertness. If you dance, if you improvise as a musician or as a dancer, you have to be alert. You have to know how to surrender to the whole context. You have to know how to listen. And to me, it's a similar thing with the painting process. I have the canvas and I would have stuff, around, and I would start to pick. And maybe I do 2, 3, 4 gestures, and then for 3 weeks I don't do anything, and come back to the same thing after 3 weeks. So it's to me, it's really the approach to the thing, and the awareness, the alertness that that then kind of informs the sort of response. And that's also, yes, that's something to me is very central. And later on you will see it's also in approaching a gardening situation, or you know, or a reforestation situation, stuff like that. I'm also like working, I have a permaculture designer. So the approach to gardening also is to me quite simple. It's always that quite similar in that sense, in terms of listening, you know, what is the situation here, what are the ingredients, what's the soil, what's the weather conditions, and what's possible here, and then according to this, the process will kind of emerge, and you will continuously keep on responding in that sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
Yeah. So this stuff is some sculptural work from debris I found on in Scotland on the beach. And I think another issue, another topic is a lot about offering, and about, you know, how in other cultures you find certain spots, or other cultures, or before also in European cultures, that were sacred, you know, just the fact that basically I would like to convey that there's aliveness all around. Here I've been, that was sort of a live performance choreography I did when there was Extinction Rebellion activities in London. And so I came up with a sort of stage thing with a group of people where it's called Take a Stand. So I gave them a little bit like a minute of silence. I gave them I asked them to pick a person or a place or an animal, something they feel deeply about and they want to give something to. And then I asked them to mingle with the people on the street. And at a certain point, I would put on music. So there was music filling the street, and they would just stand and to give this really intention standing towards the place or person. And it gave a very interesting energy for them, while, you know, passerbys would do their everyday life. It was a really nice thing. That was Extinction. This is little poetry stuff, haiku-like. This is photography stuff. I work a lot with analog photography still. And themes are, yeah, as you might see. That's a performance intervention in south of England. It's called Placeholder. It's with a sense of offering. It's a little bit heightened reality, so to speak, in the sense, you know, I painted a bit, there's sorts of symbolism working there while people doing their thing at the side.
Going out for 20 minutes. The phone's on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Give me a second a minute. Come on.
Yes, this is a work about the wolf. I have been working with shepherds a lot, and I have been living with them and working with them in France and in Norway. And the wolf is to me quite dear animal, and also very metaphorical animal in the sense of its presence in the landscape or in a country, even, and what that means, or what the absence means also. No? So this was about this. And this was now in lockdown. I then went to a farm, actually, and was basically helping to, you know, get the vegetables in the ground, and at the same time I was building a pond for them. And that's a similar approach again. You know, you look, okay, where does the pond make the most sense? And then the process itself was very beautiful. For me, a beautiful thing to do while being in lockdown. You know, you look where to put the stones, twitch them, how, and stuff. And then quite quickly there was lots of it became very alive, of course, as you know, if you have gardens and stuff. So it was a very, very nice kind of work. And this is kind of rewilding. They're kind of introducing native species of trees. So it's very, you know, very active approach there, then also a very physical work, but also there in terms of the choice of what you put where and what else is there and how that, you know, have an influence and stuff. It's basically it. There's a lot of different stuff that I do, so it's always kind of tricky to bring it into a thing or where to categorize it. But I think in the future, at the moment, I will mostly go for like really work with sound and continue the painting things. And I've been working mostly also giving workshops or facilitating. And so that's basically a sort of round up. That should be it. If you have any questions, sure.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's
can you unshare your screen, because otherwise I can't see who's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Who's asking? Who wants to ask a question? And Emma would like to ask a question.
Hello, hi Lars. Thank you for that. My mind's expanding as you talk. I was interested, and obviously this isn't a forum really for listening to your creations, but could you say something about the sound, your sound work, and your sound sources?
Yes, to me the interest in sound basically also I think it's also a philosophical interest, or an interest that you find maybe more in Indian music or in music that is not so. It's the sound, the waves itself. So at a certain point, maybe 2 years ago, I really was starting to be interested in what is sound, you know. And so I was looking into sound synthesis, into where this stuff came from, different waveforms, then the manipulation, how one waveform influences the other waveform, things like that. Certain repetitions, loops. What does the brain do when there's loops going on? You know, where does it find a rhythm or start if it doesn't establish a rhythm, and things like that. So playing with that, but also again the awareness and alertness of being in a place, in an everyday place. What's the sound here? You know, if you put the attention there, you will find a lot of different sounds sometimes suddenly being revealed to you that you were unaware of before. So I also would record on site or site specific, collect sounds here and there, and then sometimes in an improvisation, you know, in a performance setting or in a concert setting, I would mix. Again, I would have different possibilities of sound sources that I have there, and then see how I go from one to the other to the third and mix them together in the process there in a live situation. And so it can be, as I said, synthetic sounds up to sounds that I've been, you know, that I found, electroacoustic stuff, or just also bowls filled with water that I bang with a chopstick or something, you know. Voice, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm.
Yeah, anyone else? Peony, yeah.
That's really interesting. But I'm trying to get my head around everything, which isn't easy in just a few months. For example, on the seafront when you were walking there,
yeah.
What were you, and you said you were doing performance, I think it was something there. What were you actually doing with the people there, and what was your reception from them?
On the seafront?
Yes, on the promenade you were walking along, and you were yeah.
Oh, I see there. That was a performance I had, you know, conceptually clear before. I knew I was going to have a cup with water that I would, you know, just be carrying away in a sort of offering gesture. And, you know, you can put a lot of symbolism in it of water itself already, and then the offering of the cup and stuff. And so I knew that I was going to go from point A to point B, and I knew also where the frame setting I wanted to have the camera and in a still frame. And so once again, you set the still frame and I have my action and motion going on. Everything else that will happen at the time will be sort of an unfolding of the moment, you know, maybe pigeons flying in or people going and reacting to me or not. And so then that was kind of the concept of it, you see, the kind of little bit, again, for the alert eye, they will see what I do, but most of the time, 80% of the people, they're very busy with their own stuff. They don't even care meanwhile. Yeah.
So you're not interacting with them directly. They can say something or watch you, but you're just doing you're having your, it's being just photographed as you go along or recorded.
Exactly. Yes, they can interact if they feel inclined to. I don't shut them out in that sense. I'm just very kind of quietly doing what I came out to do. Yes.
And do you explain to anybody afterwards what you're doing, or is the showing the video later on the actual art? You don't interact in any way with the people around you?
That depends also on the circumstances. Sometimes there's a, you know, a conversation engaging, then like, what are you doing there and stuff like that. So there I definitely share. Other than that, it would be then the context where the video is being shared. Yes, and that would be the way of interaction.
I understand it more now. Thank you.
Yes.
Do you ever feel conflicted about how you're going to express what art form you're going to use at any given moment, or does the context basically speak to you and it's never an issue?
I don't think so much conflicted. No, I think it's mostly coming out of the circumstances and also somehow an inner urge, so to speak. Like there would be a time where I would focus more on physical and dance engaged work, and sometimes it's really more sound stuff or painting stuff. What I start to be conflicted at times is in the way of, you know, where to play stuff or how to play stuff. How do people react to it? Do people get it? You know, or for example, that's why I go, okay, if I do paintings, it's fairly easy because it can be put in a gallery. People know how to do with it, how to approach it. If I come up with more stuff that's a little bit more out of the frame, even in the sound world, then it starts to be difficult to place it. So the conflict basically comes about the reception and where to place it.
Sure. Yeah. Caroline is hovering. Oh, there she is. I'd like to ask you a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about the Japanese tea ceremony. Is that what it was right at the beginning? You just mentioned it really briefly. Was that a tea ceremony, a Japanese one?
No, I just mentioned it for as the concept of it, you know, to get a kind of sort of a metaphor. I did performance videos. I have a performance series where I drink tea with a person I chose in a public setting also. But that's not, it's more reminiscent of the tea ceremony. The tea ceremony itself, it's very ritualized. It comes, you know, it's embedded in the whole philosophy. There's a context, there's a choreography. No, I was more using, I was more using just the tea master and the disposition, you know, it's called chado. So that means it's a way of tea, like you find in the martial arts. It's a way of Aikido. It's a way of, and so it's just kind of this approach of a way of life. If this is your art form, it's really kind of this integral approach. Basically, I was trying to convey.
That's nice. Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? No, Lars, thank you very much. That was really interesting. Just extraordinary to see such a broad practice that feels completely unified.
Yes, thank you very much for the feedback. I put the website down there, so if anything comes up at any point. Then
great, thank you. Emma, over to you.
Thank you, Richard. I feel like we're about to kind of zoom really into very, 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 very fine point of focus by comparison with Lars's mind expansion. I'm a musician, I'm a violinist, and I've undergone a dramatic change of activity, as I expect we all have, since March, and as all my concerts vanished and no work on the horizon, I feel liberated strangely and unexpectedly from the obligations of practicing for concerts, the pressures of that activity, and putting on concerts and all the administration, all that kind of stuff. And I've been overjoyed to have the space, to have been given the space and the health and the security to let go of a lot of things. And I wanted to share something of where I'm at, but I feel like a very much a beginner in amongst this company. Obviously I'm middle-aged and I'm an experienced musician. I've been performing all my life in various ensembles on platforms, and I have composed along the way, always driven by concerns about climate change. And so this has been the my main focus is creating audio works for the concert platform mostly that deal with in a visceral way, without words, with ideas about climate change. And I've done that through recording of electricity generators, such as coal turbines, and combining them in pieces of music where people play both conventional musical instruments and also hand tools combined. And the idea is all about examining how we make sound and how that is work, and how electricity can work for us and does work for us, but what happens if we take the electricity away, what we're capable of without it. So very much working on that, on climate change as idea. And but also alongside that, I've had a concert series that I run in and around Exeter called A Quiet Night In. And Quiet Nights In are usually take place in a space, and we program very, very quiet pieces of music on the whole, sometimes on the threshold of audibility. And so we're entering and inviting our audience into a kind of way of listening, which is extremely attentive. Sometimes we might not be sure whether we're hearing a piece played or not, or whether we're hearing the room or accidental sounds, and it's quite a blur. So listening has been a big thing for me throughout the whole journey. After having the opportunity to stop everything and not knowing, all my work, all my creative work is totally about context. I expect you're all the same. And when the context changed, it felt like this is a time to pause and enter a vacuum, reassess, and see what comes into it. And so what I wanted to share with you today is a little of what I've started to make now I've had the time, and this is come into the vacuum unbidden, really. And through this intense localism that we've had, I expect we've all had this thing where we have been really in our own habitat and so focused, and not only us as artists, but everybody has had this incredible experience of the local, and really hopefully appreciating what is on our doorsteps. I feel very fortunate that I feel I have a very nice doorstep. Just you can step into Exeter, which is a small city, and into the countryside around us quite easily. But I've also been really struck by how other people that I meet, just people, my neighbours, anybody I meet around me, has all been saying, I've been so happy with less, and I don't want to go back to what it was. And even people who've really surprised me, who really have experienced an incredible sensory opening of the listening through the spring, and the effect of observing and being really in spring in a visceral way, and having the time and the attention to be able to do that. I've been making sound walks, which are new to me. They're musical compositions. They are on a single page of A4 that somebody can print. I'm a musician. I'm not a visual artist in any way. I've not practiced anything in the way of drawing or manipulating things via a screen. I don't do things on screen, so this has been an enormously steep learning curve for me. But anyway, I'm going to show you what I've drawn. I've made 3, and I'm going to make 2 a month for the whole year. No, I've made 4 so far. So here we go. Let me just see if I can share my screen. Let's have something to share first. I'm really happy to be interrupted, by the way. Haven't really prepared a speech. I'm just there, all just coming out. What am I sharing? Here, let's try this. Okay. Can you confirm you can see something?
We can see your work.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the first one I've made, and the 4 sound walks I've made are all from my own home, pretty much, to different points of the compass. This one was east, and it's called Tree to Tree, and as you can see, it looks like a child's work, but I think the listening's good. That's the important thing, and working out how to present things visually in the minimum amount of information. I think I'm looking back at this, I think I'm managing to let go of a lot of visual clutter as I make these walks. And it's also, of course, writing, because I'm writing to describe, an invitation to listen to people. I should say that the reason I think all this, the focus on listening came, was because I really did stop and just was still for a long period of time for me. And the listening became sort of an overwhelming push and thing that I needed to deal with. So this I've been sharing locally, and what I discovered quite unexpectedly was, and I want to refer back to Caroline's talking of bonding together of materials and people, and what I found that completely surprised me was that the profound feeling of connection that when somebody does one of my sound walks and then tells me about it, or sends me a photograph of themselves on it, or sends me a recording that they've made whilst they were on it, how the profound connection that we have between our hearts, and that is how I know that it's worth doing and persevering with. And it's not enough just to give it out, but the circle needs to be completed, that somebody is. And I suppose in a way I'm used to having that from the concert platform, and this is a new kind of platform for me and a new way of connecting. And I think if we are going to be having to do things in more isolation, I'm happy that I've come up with something which allows that kind of connection without being physically in the same place.
Can I ask you a question, Emma?
Yes, please.
Would you think of this as a score?
Yes, definitely. Oh, absolutely. That's a great question. Completely. I'm completely coming from the world of a musician. This is a musical score and I compose them. So I'm composing, although I suppose the modern way of saying I'm curating an experience. I'm composing an experience. I'm choosing, obviously I'm not putting all the sounds that I hear down here. I'm creating a journey for people, making choices about them. Sometimes the sounds I choose are very, very local, specific subjects. And sometimes it's just be in this interesting acoustic, in this interesting space. You'll see the last one on this page is to climb inside this particular tree on Exeter University's campus, which is very, very broad bowl in the middle of it. You can sort of climb inside the many branches, and when you do that, you find it has its own acoustics. So I'm inviting people to put themselves in positions, situations, spend time, pause, and listen. So each of mine are with various different types of playfulness, like that, climbing inside a tree.
So in some sense, the feedback that you get is a bit like a musician interpreting a score.
Exactly, absolutely. And that's what's wonderful. And you don't always get that from an audience. You don't always get that opportunity to hear. They maybe just leave and you don't know. So it makes me think, I suppose, if I ever go back to performing, that I'd like to build that in more to concerts, to make that part of it, the discussion or feedback or reaction, and create space for people. So I'll just show you this last one that I've recently made. Oh, it really is less busy, isn't it? I'm reflecting on this now. This is a slightly more playful one where we play objects. First of all, we focus by sitting and listening, and then we play on various objects that are in the environment. Some of them a variety of different gates made of different materials. So I'm encouraging, hoping that people will experiment and interact with their environment in ways that they might not, and I certainly didn't before I started making these.
We can still only see the tree to three.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh dear. Sorry, I don't know how I'm going to do that. Let me just try shutting all that down.
Are these available for other people to download on a website?
They are. Thank you.
So tell us when you have a moment. Type that in so that we can.
Yeah, it. I'll put that in now. So yeah. So it's emmawelton.net. Put that there.
Great, thank you.
So the second area of work I've been making is even more focused than that, and that at least leaves my premises. But the second area of work is entirely in my garden, and is again about listening, derived from listening. Extremely simple pieces. I record a subject in my garden using binaural microphones on either side of my head, and I video the subject in a fixed way. So I don't edit it, I don't move it, the frame is fixed on the subject. And so what I'm interested in, and for these, what I call slightly provocatively, I think, music videos, because music is sound. It's simply the sound that I hear. And I suppose in a way I've always been troubled by John Cage's assertion that music is all around, it is we who turn away. And I know that living in New York, John Cage was very happy about and said that he just accepted the sounds of his city. And I find even in my suburban part of very green, leafy Exeter, it is an urban environment. It is noisy. There's trains and there's cars. And after lockdown was so calm and quiet, and now the volume has crescendoed again, and I'm really it. So I'm making sound about it. I'm going towards that. The thing that bothers me, and making pieces out of the sounds. So sometimes I will pick a subject, maybe like a wasp that was harvesting the garden shed, just focus on the wasp and listen and capture the sound of the wasp, but also everything else in the environment. Sometimes I'm making performance action pieces, so jobs, tasks I have to do in a way, I'll capture them. So picking a row of loganberries, and the piece lasts as long as the job. And finally, a piece I've just finished making, which was technically very difficult. I've never edited a film. I've had a great deal, or operated a camera. I have a great deal to learn, but I've made a recording of the first 5 minutes of every hour for a day, running from midnight to midnight. And I'm editing it. I've made one so far where I edit it so that the piece is 2 minutes of every hour from midnight to midnight. Video and recording as I hear on the binaural microphones either side of my head. And so the journey is a sound journey. There is a visual journey. It goes from dark to light to dark, but actually very little happens visually. It's a fixed view. A bee might go past, or a bird, but the sound is where the richness lies. And I hope that will, what I'm wanting to do is keep the attention on listening, on the sound, and on our habitat and ourselves within our habitat. How we what we permit, the sounds we permit in our habitat, the sounds that we don't permit. In fact, I hope I'm revealing the sounds that we don't necessarily see or notice, that we blank out. And just to finish, I'll say that the one thing that's surprised me most in all this, and of course, as soon as you start making anything, you find things you're not looking for, which is, I guess, why we do it. That keeps it interesting, isn't it? Interested. What I've found is that it's almost impossible for me not to appear in my recordings in some way, as quietly as I sit. Usually you can hear me breathing at some point, especially when I'm doing work. There we are. You can't you change the observed thing by observing it, but we are in our habitat, we are in our environment, and I guess I'm learning to embrace that and to embrace the life that is around me, including the cars at the moment. I still have a hard time with them, but that's me in my space, in my habitat. And I'm just sorry, I said I finished, and one more thing. Somebody did offer me a gig last week on the violin, and I turned it down because I feel that I'm really not ready to go back into that mode of thinking. I'm very much ploughing this new furrow, and thoroughly enjoying it. I think maybe it's overdue. Maybe it's long overdue, and it's allowed me to go to invest in myself and my time and my space in a way that I didn't even know I needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Any?
Yeah. Thank you, Emma. That was really interesting.
Okay.
And I'm glad you had found a forum to put out your walks. And maybe I'll try some someday.
Please.
It was really interesting this morning. I went around to a friend's garden and actually played some music live. She was inside with her piano and I was in the garden with my oboe. And it was so interesting. I was really apprehensive about doing it. It felt like playing live music with somebody from the very first time. It was really amazing. And I have to say that the amount of traffic noise was enormous because of where she lives. And normally I would have run a mile from playing there, but this morning it was marvellous. So good to see you.
Thank you, Jane.
I think I am deeply, fundamentally bereft from, but also divorced from music at the moment. In the former sense of me engaging with it. I think there's a very deep emotional need that I'm going to be overwhelmed by when I finally do get my violin back and play with other people.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of aware of that.
I've actually been much more involved with visual scores during this time than I have been with actual live sound.
Yeah. Yeah, we're suddenly visual. In fact, I was going to say something about that in my new foray of presenting video work, music videos. It seems I found I really thoroughly enjoyed looking at my co-speakers' websites. They're all beautiful and beautifully framed images and pictures and stuff, and as soon as they came up on the screen, I could appreciate them in their fullness. I can see the whole thing at once, and I really feel this with time-based things. Anything what you're asking is for somebody to spend 4 minutes listening in a fully attentive way in front of a screen, and I don't want to be spending any time in front of a screen personally. Here we are, but we have to, don't we? And I have to. This platform is my platform now, and I really want to share this time, but how can I make it attractive and easier for people to spend that time really attending for 4 minutes? Or in terms of the one that went from midnight to midnight, that piece at the moment is 50 minutes long. I mean, that's crazy. Nobody's going to listen to that.
Maybe I've got an idea.
Actually, can I stop you, Kaz? Because I think Jane Hodgson, that is, you had a question. And then we'll come back to you, Kaz.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Well, it wasn't a question, actually. I'm really fascinated with what you're doing. mostly my practice is visual mark making, but not in its entirety at all. But I also teach people to draw. Have you ever thought about making marks in response to your sounds that you hear, or asking other people to?
Yes.
And I can explain more about what I'm suggesting if that's of interest to you.
Is a sort of an automatic writing, unthinking responding, or?
It's kind of, we have sharp noises, don't we? And we have very soft noises. A suggestion that I find it fascinating anyway, that how do we show the sharp noise? Is it with a really big graphite stick, or is it with a feather dipped in dust? You know?
Yeah.
That's why, you know, that is a summary of what I'm suggesting. I find it fascinating to, if you feel things, I know you're not feeling, but if you feel, for instance, a pine cone and get someone to draw it, my goodness, it looks like a pine cone. You try and visually look at a pine cone and draw it, and it's nigh on impossible. So it's fascinating.
That's
so you're
great.
taking it out of your normal way of being, and you're using your other senses to then create something different.
As the senses, that's great, thank you. And what I've noticed is that in making the sound walks, the researching and the doing of the walk in the first place, when I compose it, because I've been doing it so very much, I'm also, all my other senses are also open. And I'm particularly smell recently. I thought you could equally well make a smell walk. And then, of course, you can use any senses all the time. You can make sense walk. But I'm sticking to my sounds at the moment. But I love the idea of the feeling of things. And I like the last one that I made, which I couldn't show you, was from gate to gate, and it's because I'm asking people to play gates as musical instruments, and the gates all have different properties. The first one's made of wood, enormous wooden planks. It's basically a massive xylophone, and then the last two are metallic gates. And when you move them, they clang and resonate in their hollow tubes, and you feel the vibrations through your hand as well as through the air. So I put that in the score as well to attend to all the elements of it. And I think there's a great deal, even though we're in sound, we experience sound, as you're saying, through contact, through our ears, but also potentially through our skin and our hands. Thank you.
Kaz, I think you had a, oh no, who's next? Yeah, Kaz.
Yeah. Well, we've just been having a little chat on the chat, because I'm moving to Exeter next year, and so we're going to meet up. And I'm really, really excited because I think your work is brilliant, and how brave, you know, how brave to just do that and take the opportunity of lockdown to change direction. And I love it because, you know, lockdown has been a really hard, for some very depressing, difficult time, but you seem to have brought a lot of fun out of lockdown, which is good, is brilliant, you know. That's great. And so I wanted to ask you a couple of things. One is, how do you share your work and get people to engage with it? The second is, I think if you manage to get it on some things like YouTube or, you know, social media networks, you would have so many people interested and engaging in it. I think it would just become really popular. And also, this is just perfect for kids, and they would totally love this kind of thing. And me being an outdoor learning teacher, you know, I know that would, and in fact, you've inspired me to do one in my school grounds because it's such a good idea.
Oh, that's great that you observed that. I can tell you about that in a bit. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, good. But you know, I'm the sort of person who's on a walk and I'm running my fingers along the fences and tapping things as I go. So I think we all have an innate exploration for this kind of thing, and it's whether we allow ourselves to engage in that or not. Because I'm doing it thinking, God, everyone must think I'm mad, you know, but I don't really care because it's such a great sound and it's so much fun. And so yeah, please tell me about how you get this out to the world. And also, again, a very practical question: how do you make a living from it?
Great, very good. Okay, 3 questions. How do I share my work? I have had a name, my website name, for years, and I've never developed the website, but I certainly have now. Suddenly I've worked out how to make a website. As I say, this is the platform, isn't it, of the moment. And only in the last week have I signed up to Facebook, and only in the last week have I been sharing my work on Twitter. I really hate it all, but I know I've got to go towards it. I really don't want to be spending time at a computer. I want to be outside all the time, listening and making work. And I've had to spend an inordinate amount of time at my desk at my computer. But again, I'm so passionate about it. I really want to share it with people. It's all about that connection for me. So I'm a real newbie for all that kind of stuff, but I have had an instant and wonderful and kind of satisfying response to the stuff that I've put out already, which is only with my own friends and acquaintances and musical acquaintances, and most of my musical acquaintances are very much in the world of music and classical music and stuff, and not so much on the arts and conceptual end of things. So I think there's a lot of potential, and I would be very happy to receive any advice from people about other outlets, other platforms.
What is your website address, please?
EmmaWelton.net. That's all one word. How I came up with the idea for the soundwalks, it was actually for kids. I've been working for Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra throughout lockdown, one of my few little bits of strands of work that's continued. I run a family orchestra in Exeter with Hugh Nankyville, and we've got kids in that orchestra from the age of 3 to kids to the age of 83, and some 3 generations, and we've had 24 people, sometimes more, coming for fortnightly Sunday morning sessions. We can't make music together in the way that we normally do as an orchestra, and a pretty strange orchestra we are anyway. So we have realized that as far as our creative activities go, we have to do that between our sessions. So we have been composing within households, but we've also been composing sound walks, and we've each been composing sound walks, and we've each been doing each other's sound walks, which is where we discovered this kind of circularity of it. You make a sound walk, you offer it to people, somebody does it, they tell you their experience. One of the guys made a poem, a sound walk poem on Dartmoor, and I went and walked his poem and sent him my own experience back, and he said he'd read it with an enormous grin on his face. So it was aimed at kids and families and people to do together. How do I make a living? I'm not at the moment, it's all gone. So I have a little bit of a trickle of teaching, online teaching. It's worn very thin, I can tell you, by the end of the school year, and I don't relish picking it up online again in September. It's possible it might come back. People come to my house for lessons usually. I'm reasonably good at finding funding for creative activities, for producing music events and sound events. So I'm kind of looking into whether I can raise some funding to make any of these projects happen, maybe with people and in my community. I think it's very good for community collection and making. I might consider running some sound walks myself with people. I think they're very small groups, if I can ever be bothered to look at the regulations on that. So yeah, living is, I've had the government grant. In fact, I must say that I think the government grant for self-employed people feels like, to me, the investment I've never made in my own creative life. So thank goodness for that. And I don't suppose that's going to last forever, but it's certainly been significant for me in enabling me to have this space.
Does anybody else have a question or a comment for Emma? Because if not, I'd like to tell a very brief story about quiet music. In a previous life, not quite a number of years ago, when most of my focus was as a composer, and I was living in a rural place and making incredibly quiet music that was on the verge, the threshold of hearing, and loving it, because of course it would always meld with the outside sounds. But I was invited to give a performance at a loft in New York, in Manhattan. So, I went down there and took the music down and, of course, tried to play it, and you couldn't hear anything because there was so much traffic noise in Manhattan that it was completely impossible. So, anyway, I just thought I'd share that little gem. I think we had one other person down today, but I have a feeling she's not been able to connect, so because we haven't seen her. So next time, maybe. Does anybody like to say anything at this point?
Just one thing for Emma. Have you read Michael Morpurgo's book, Where My Wellies Take Me?
I have to admit I haven't.
That's all about a walk, a child's version of a walk. It's a lovely book.
I'll look at that, thank you.
Can you give us the title again?
It's Where My Wellies Take Me.
Okay, I've heard of it, yeah.
Perfect. I just wanted to reply to Peony in the chat. You wish you could experience one of my sound walks. Well, you can make your own. And mine are, obviously they are just out of my house, and I'm not intending on going any further, really, probably. Well, I might do. I never know. You never know. But anyone can make a sound walk.
But it's having your input into because you're so oral, it's having the way you hear the world. Because I used to, before I was doing art, I'm a children's author, and I used to tutor a lot of workshops, and for adult writers too. And of course, one of the things, the very basic things you do is get them to think about all their senses. So they have to go out, they have to, as you call the hearing bit, the touching, but they have to write descriptions of it. So you're kind of the other way, it's a completely different way, it's sing it in a different way. So it just made me think of it differently. So yeah, sure.
That's good. That's given me an idea for making a sound walk which is non-space specific. Not non-place specific, yeah.
I think Phil Smith has done some work with non-specific descriptions of places, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
Because they with Rights and Sights, they did a series of books that were kind of guides to particular places. Which was all about kind of finding hidden things within cities. But then they came out with a guide to anywhere, and that was about how you put yourself into a city, how you live, how you experience a city in a different kind of ways. And it was about listening, it was about looking, it was about stopping, it was about doing the unpredictable. But it was a guide to anywhere. You could do it anywhere. And in a way, the principle of the sound walk is the same. I take Peony's point that, Emma has a set of ears that are particular and therefore listens to things in a particular way. But I think everybody can do it to some degree. But you better get that patent on it quick, because otherwise everybody will be doing it.
Oh, I think they are already.
They are already. Wear a blindfold. My tip is to wear a blindfold, because
definitely closing your eyes is the way.
You don't cheat then if you close your eyes.
To switch that off. The visual is primary always. In fact, one of the things I'm playing with in my videos is blanking out the video from time to time. And I'm doing that more and more. In fact, there's the music video I made of the wasp. Is on the shed, and there's so many accidents are happening, and I'm just going with them. The shed, the wasp was beautifully in focus on the shed and cutting away the wood for its nest. And then whilst I was making the video, the shed door blew backwards, and so the wasp went out of focus, and the hedge behind came into focus. And I found that even with my expert ears, I heard something completely different as a result of that shift in visual focus. I think there's a lot that I'm going to be discovering along those lines, and I think the format of keeping the basic kind of, this is a fixed visual vantage point, and the binaural microphones, if I keep those fixed, there are other elements in the editing suite that I can do about shifting our listening focus, and playing that, sort of teasing people visually, by taking away the visual and putting it back, or interfering with it in some way.
Lizzie, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the text in the map that you showed, Emma, and whether you thought about considering different typefaces or different modes of writing or something.
At the moment, I'm trying a little bit of onomatopoeia, tiny bits sprinkled in, and trying to make it as what I want is for people not to be looking and caught up in. So in a way, I know that people will do these walks if they do them on a screen. I prefer people to print it and take a piece of paper with them, but I know that people will use so it's got to work on that font. But I don't, it's a kind of anti-tech really. I don't want people to, I want people's attention to be up, not in here. But I would love to hear from you what's behind that question, and because I'm sure that it will be insightful.
Thank you. Well, I suppose it just stood out to me, the formality of the text, whereas I love the playfulness of your drawing. It was just such a pleasure to look at, and it jarred a little bit for me that the two didn't go together as much as I hankered after, really, because I love drawing so much.
I can see that.
Yeah.
For making that. What advice?
Good question. I mean, handwritten, I think, for me.
Yeah, I know, it's nice, isn't it? I just didn't think that I could make them quickly enough and accurately enough by hand, but it would be nice to try. I have to say, with the third one, I did the text, I scanned my drawing and I wrote the text onto the image on a PDF. And I actually completely hated the outcome. It was far too professional and proper. And so for the fourth one, I've gone back to, I cut out my printed sheets so you can see the, cut and pasting, and I just stick them onto my image. And I much prefer that sort of haphazardness of it. I'm sure maybe the next one I will, with your encouragement. Thank you.
Okay, I think people are starting to drift away, and I think, an hour and 40 minutes is as much as we can cope with on our screens. Does anybody have
one more question?
Jane has a parting shot. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
Actually, about money. Emma, you said you're getting government funding.
The self-employed grant. Self-employed.
Okay. All right, because I just got a tiny amount in June because I generally earn so little. But
that's always the always the problem with these things, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
They're all relative to income, so your income is already tiny.
I'm not missing out on anything.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, everybody, particularly presenters, but everybody as well, for being with us today. Next week we'll have, next month we'll have some more music actually, because Nankerville, I think, is going to be coming along, and I'm not sure who else at the moment. So next time, let's share some recipes as well, so that we're sharing food. And who knows, one of these days maybe we'll be meeting in person as well. But it's great to have people who couldn't come meet us from all over the world, which is fantastic. So thank you, everybody.
Thank
See you next month.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Ciao, ciao.
Stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. It was really fantastic.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.